Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paravine Show Into the Rift at a special time. To explain that before I introduce my co-hosts, we did decide that Monday shows will be normal, but with Worlds, we only really had Worlds to talk about, and we needed some games. So the focus of the show will be the games that you saw over the past 2 days. Before we get into that, let's introduce everybody. As you can see, I am Thomas Watts. I work for both LOL Esports, Paravine, and Daily Dot. That's actually three that both shouldn't work. But anyway, my panelists this evening are Camille Mai, Dave Troop, and Stephen Nguyen. They're all writers for Paravine. I'll edit for them, and I edit for them. That's what I'm going to say. But that's okay. We have a great show. We're going to talk about a lot of games, so let's get right into it. Obviously, guys, we've had two groups going this week. This week, Group A and Group B. Let's start at Group A. Dave, what have you seen coming out of Group A? Is there a specific game or a trend? What have you seen that's jumped out at you in Group A?
Well, coming into Group A was obviously the joke group, right? It was the group that everybody kind of knows Samsung White and EDG are going to make it out of. It's not really a big thing. So for me, the big focus of that group so far was that game, the first game of Worlds, Samsung White versus EDG. Now, the interesting thing, I don't think many people were surprised that Samsung White won, but I think a lot of people were surprised about Namei, specifically because of the hype around him, coming in as, highly touted, the #1 AD carry in the world. The thing is that his playstyle isn't like an Uzi or Imp where he's really flashy, and in that situation where he loses that game, people, I don't know if anybody listened to Freak say it at the end of the game, but he had the most damage in the entire game, despite losing the game on Lucian. That's not a hyper carry. That's saying something about his ability to play the game. So he might not be the flashiest player, but I think that the big thing to take out of this group is that there's a lot of negative attention on Namei for some reason because he didn't go 17-0. I don't know what they expected. They're playing probably the best team in the world. I don't know what people expected of him, but that to me is the big focus because everything else is kind of standard. You kind of have to be silly to not see everything that happening.
I do want to say, if fans did not know, LOL Esports has been publishing match histories for all these games, so you can dig into, if you're a stats head, if you've read some of the stuff I've done recently, I'm a stats head, they go real deep in it, and that's where you're getting the Namei stat. Camille, I have a question for you, because I know you're kind of the GPL guy of the four of us, actually. What did you think of AHQ, particularly how Green Tea has performed? I thought he's been very impressive. What do you think?
Well, Green Tea was impressive, but I don't think that's too much of a surprise for people that actually watch GPL, because he was always playing really well, and from the duo, the Ghana Devil and the Green Tea, he wasn't the flashy one, but he was the one that made all those plays happen. So that's pretty cool how he played. I still think that AHQ overall needs more than a miracle at this point to do anything to get out of the group, but I think overall HQ played fine. Wesdo played okay. Also, the hype was about the Wesdo obviously being the top player in season 1 and 2 on the American servers, which is a bit outdated, but what can you do? And when you actually look at Wesdo's history, the latest history in the GPL, he's not particularly respected for being the best player. People tend to say okay, Wesder is definitely the best middle lane, and he is on some champions. But he played those champions even when the meta shifted. He played when Lulu's or Yanas were most of the mid laners played those. He just kept playing Fizz. That didn't work because he didn't adapt to anything. So yes, Wesder was playing well, but the meta helped him a bit, and it's I'm still on the edge if it's really that great or not.
I hear you. Steven, I am going to kick it to you, but before I do, I want to tell fans, remind them, we are pitching this show as a show for the fans. So if you have a question for me or for anyone on the panel, feel free, if you've added me on Skype, send me a Skype question there, tweet at us. But the easiest way would certainly be through chat. I know we have moderators, and I can whip them, and they'll give me the question, and we'll get it answered as soon as we can. Anyway, Steven, I've taken comments from the other two. What did you see coming out of Group A? Did you see anything different, or are you just kind of echoing your other two panelists?
Well, first thing I want to mention is that I'm really happy the way EDG played yesterday and today, because they're really starting to break down the stereotype of how Chinese people, like Chinese players specifically, don't know how to ward.
Chinese.
Yeah, typical Chinese aggression, and they don't know how to play, like, buy wards, or like it's disabled on the Chinese server for some reason. No, like Clear Love bought Sight Zone on his games. They warded up really well. I saw a pretty good amount of pink wards. I thought they played a really solid game across both days. Yeah, like, and according to with the Namei hype, also remember that like a lot of people were bashing on Namei just because he lost to Imp, but he didn't really lose to Imp necessarily. He lost to Mata. Mata played brilliantly that first game that like on Namei. Also, I guess HQ. I was pretty excited for HQ. And I'm pretty happy to see Green Tea play. I was really impressed with him.
Yeah.
I hope the GPL gets better in the next year or two, because I definitely want to see them back, or at least Green Tea in particular.
Well, him and Westdoor look pretty strong, I think. The one matchup in particular was in that. I mean, I know this isn't saying much, but in the matchup against Naru, when Naru was on Syndra, there was a whole 2 waves where Syndra had level 6 and Fizz missed 1 CS, and Fizz was level 5 at this point. So obviously that's kind of a misplay by Naru, but it also kind of shows you that Westdoor is like on those assassins that he does play. I know Camille said he doesn't really play anything outside of them, but on the ones he does play, he seems to be really confident, because getting 11 and a 12 CS on a Fizz when you're level 5 against Syndra level 6, that takes some serious guts.
Well, I'm gonna pin you down, Steven, because you did give props to EDG.
Okay.
So, given what you've said, does EDG translate that into a win over Samsung White at the end of this group, or is it or has White been so overpowering that it doesn't matter?
I think EDG put up a good enough fight that they could at least make it like even closer in the end game. Like, it wasn't like that one-sided, I felt like, at least for the first half of the game. I mean, it was like what 43-minute game, I think, 44 minutes.
Yeah, but let's be fair as to why that is. I mean, White had I like EDG, but White had that game, and then Pawn's Yasuo is. Let's hope we don't see that again, because literally his chrono shifts were never on Imp, and Imp was always jumping. It looked like Imp was always expecting a chrono shift, and never got it. I mean, Imp is a reckless player, but he was playing. To be fair to him, he was playing like he was expecting the chrono shift, and he never got it.
Like, thinking on it, I would give it like 70-30 to Samsung White near the end of the groups, but
Yeah, that's fair.
especially because I don't think they're gonna play as cocky as they did. Because I know Imp was playing ridiculously aggressive, really dumb. Like, he was flash jumping into the 1v4 into the 1v4ing into like the back line or something. And Pawn was never in position to chrono shift. They just didn't coordinate, and I don't think they're going to make that same mistake again. But with more adjustments to playing in this new area, I think EDG could bring it really close.
Okay. Well, I'll take a toss-up. Camille, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't believe from the Korean teams, EDG just got matched with the worst one for them. I don't think they can win against, especially Dandy, and Looper played pretty well as well, and he played Rumble, which we haven't seen much, if at all. So the difference between Dandy and Clear Love is just too great. You can't really put those two in the same game and expect the team with Clear Love to win. The pressure, the warding, the control of objectives, everything is on Dandy's side. So, yeah, EDG was playing well, but they would need some better jungler or maybe some better control over objectives. Also, I'm gonna go a bit into the hype about Namei, and I'm not gonna say that he's overrated and so on, but if you play this type of a deft-ish type of a AD carry where you just stand on the back line and just try to do as much damage without getting hit at all, you can't really say that he made a mistake or he didn't make a mistake because those mistakes aren't really visible. If Imp makes a mistake and dies, he is dead. If Namei makes a mistake, he just doesn't do like 1,000 damage. And people don't see that. So maximizing the damage from the backline, that's his problem. I don't think, from time to time in some team fights, I've seen him just being a bit too careful, and he could have hit few more shots and few more skills. But, you know, it's the price for trying to just be untouchable by anyone else.
Well, I suppose that's fair. Chinese fans, if you want to give him hate, his Twitter is below his picture, and I like those Twitter wars, so go ahead. We haven't mentioned one team, and I'm pretty sure I know why, but Dark Passage, they've been the group's whipping boy. Given how they've played, I think they're going to maintain being the group's whipping boy over the next 2 days. But I do have a question for the panel. This has been a discussion that I've seen in multiple chats all over Twitter. I don't think it's hit Reddit yet because they're too busy trying to fume over TSM, which we'll get into later. But the International Wildcard Tournament, obviously Dark Passage is from Turkey, but they play on European servers, and they're losing to mid-tier European challenger teams. There has been a push to make it a true International Wildcard Tournament, which, in my mind, would mean, another Korean team makes it. But I wanted to get, we talked about this before the show, I wanted to get the three of your opinion on this. Like, where do you stand and why? Dave, could you start us off on that?
Well, in terms of this tournament right now, I hate the fact that there's wildcard teams in it. Because as you said, Dark Passage, if they were on the US server, which they have been, they don't do so well. They don't, I mean, let's face it, I think Unicorns of Love or Teammate would probably be better teams. And they both just came out of the challenger scene. And that's just from what I've seen. Naru is not a good mid laner. I'm sorry, he's just not. And Holy Phoenix, he looks very good in the International Wildcard Tournament, but his use of Rocket Jump, especially in that first game yesterday, was just absolutely abysmal. So, but I understand, on the other hand, why it's necessary, because we do want League of Legends to be an international game. We want it to be more and more popular. We want it to grow. And if fans from Brazil and Turkey and stuff like that literally never get a chance to see their team play, even if it's just to see their team get stomped, they might not have as passionate scenes. And especially from what I've heard about Brazil, the fans are incredibly passionate. Turkey, from what I've seen, they're really supporting their people. Taiwan, they're incredibly supportive of the TPA team. So I think it sucks that, we're going to have these growing pains. I think it's a very similar situation to the LCS expanding to 10 teams. There's a period where it kind of sucks in terms of the game quality. We're going to have some very lackluster games where one team just severely stomps another one. But in the long run, hopefully it'll be worth it as those regions develop and they become better quality.
I think that's fair. Steven, do you agree, disagree? Where do you stand on this issue?
I'm kind of half and half. Like Dave said, I understand why Riot thinks the wildcard tournaments is essential, because in a way we're kind of like trying to merge cultures like in esports, and if you don't even give the other teams a chance to compete at the Worlds, how are they even going to be motivated to make their own scene? And,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, so it makes sense to me, but if anything, I would say we have two wildcard teams, right? We have Kaboom and Dark Passage. We can have one wildcard tournament that's similar to the one we have now, like the amateur, the smaller scenes, and then we can maybe have a follow-up wildcard for all the teams who didn't make it to Worlds can compete in that. So maybe that would be the Korean team, I don't know, but we could, I would like that instead. Kind of like a winners-losers bracket kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see Riot win one of those. It'd be and it'd be not lambasted. But I see where you're going. Camille, we haven't heard your opinion on this. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I'm all for the idea of doing a separate wildcard qualifier, probably a LAN, and I would even love it to be hosted on one of the maybe IEM events or one of the MLG's events, and just bring all those fourth seeds from Korea, China, and so on, and bring some of the Turkish teams, some of the Brazilian teams, and maybe Russian teams or whatever. Just so those a bit weaker regions, make it a standalone tournament. Not even, it doesn't have to be hosted by Riot even, and just it's not going to be a mini Worlds because, the level is different, to say the least. But it would be fun. And it would be giving a chance to those teams to compete at Worlds, but if you directly put some of those teams into Worlds without the middle step, which would be an LCS level or the GPL, OGN, or whatever, they don't have the middle step transition. So I would prefer to have them a bit backing out of those world tournaments and just if they win the qualified tournament, fine, they are good enough. But if not, then they had their chance, and the level would be a bit high at Worlds.
That's pretty fair.
Actually, can I propose something?
Go
If
ahead.
we had more international tournaments, so to give the lesser scenes more chance for international experience, and they got better through that, would you be more okay with the idea of having 2 wildcard teams?
The 2 wildcard teams
In Worlds.
No, like, how would you choose them? With the tournaments as they stand?
No, yeah, same thing as now. But before the wildcard tournaments, throughout the season, if we had more international tournaments for the lesser scenes, Turkey, Brazil, whatever, if they could get better through those.
Let me answer this one, and this is a totally selfish answer. As someone who has a ballot on Lolly Sports Power Rankings, yes, give me more international competition so I can base it more off, less off of stuff for concrete. But besides that, I think it would be interesting. Now, I doubt Riot will do it because they lock in their LCS teams,
right.
But it's definitely something worth discussing. Dave, what do you think on this?
Well, Riot has a really weird stance where they think, look at how crazy it would be if both teams never met each other and then they meet at Worlds. But I don't think that's really a good storyline. I actually really like the rival story. Why is TSM CLG so much fun to watch no matter what, despite the games not being as great quality as some Chinese or Korean games? Because the teams hate each other and want to win. So it's fun to watch. It's just, I think the more international tournaments, the better. I think there's definitely off seasons where we could do it. I mean, I think we could even take breaks in the middle of LCS. You don't need LCS every single week. You could take a week or 2 break in the middle of the LCS split, have an international tournament from a few teams from each LCS and stuff like that. And I think Steven makes a good point. If you had more international tournaments, those teams would be exposed to higher level competition of play. And I've told you this, guys, before. I think the best way to get better at anything is to throw yourself into the gauntlet, right? So if you take these teams and just continuously throw them into tournaments where they're forced to play Koreans, forced to play the best NA and EU LCS teams, they will get better because they're competitors and they're not going to just want to roll over and die every game. So I think Steven makes a valid point. That would be much better, in my opinion, than the current system. But that's not saying much.
Right.
Camille, before I kick this to you so you can give us your opinion on this, I know I have a couple of questions specifically on playstyles and TPA. We're going to cover Group B shortly, and I will build those questions into the conversation. But thank you for giving us Thank you for giving us your questions. I can talk good, I promise. Camille, what you got on this last topic before we move to Group B?
Yeah, definitely. I'm all for the international events. When Riot decided to host the LCS, I was really happy. But when teams were the only chance to get LCS and OGN and those teams into an international event was to have Riot delegate them to those events, which is a really weird model. I don't like it. I prefer the tournament structure anyway. That's why I watch CSGO, for example, because I prefer a few days of a tournament, then a break, and a few days later another tournament. That's more interesting, I think. But if we make maybe even in the international circuit for those all those international events, for the non. Yeah, I can't say that DP is not a professional team, but not the Riot contracted teams. Maybe this way would be okay to decide which teams are good enough to join the World Championship later on. And they would be playing against better teams. I don't think they would get to the Korean level, even if they played them for a year. I don't think that's going to happen, but they would get
That's an enormous leap for almost every reason, though. So that's. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but they would get steadily. They would be getting better. That's the thing. They have to steadily get better. They can't just be, we are good in our region. We don't play anyone else, and then we get stomped at Worlds. And that's gonna repeat every season from now on because that's not gonna magically change.
No. You don't get it's the problem Cloud9 had, right? You can't it's very, very hard to improve when no one's punishing your mistakes. It's very hard to get better when you're the best there is.
Mm-hmm.
It's much easier to get better when you have somebody who's better than you and you can go, oh, this is why he's better than me. I'm just gonna do that and now I'm better at the game. Or now I'm better at whatever it is that I'm doing. It's a very weird situation.
Yeah.
I can see that, but guys, I do want to kind of move on with the show. We have a couple of questions that I'm going to build into our next conversation, and as a little foreshadowing, let's go on and move to Group B. I'll be honest, I personally think Group B is far more interesting than Group A. Given the first 2 days of action, what have y'all seen? Which storylines have influenced you the most? I guess. Camille, what about you? What have you gotten into?
Yeah,
I know you're the GPL guy, so tell us some TPA.
I'm just incredibly sad because TPA is becoming the second COG, but just from Asia right now. They're playing one game there against one. The first game against Starhorn Royal Club, they played really well. They couldn't close out, but they had the lead. At one point, I think they had 9 or 10k lead, something like that. So they were playing incredibly well. Wings was just dominating everyone, and then they just didn't do anything. Then they just stalled. Then they got stopped by Royal Club a bit more, and then they lost for no other reason than being outscaled and not doing anything. And from there on, there was the the TSM game, which was also quite disappointing for me, at least, because I thought that they are better than that. They got rough stomped by TSM pretty much. And against SK it was really close, which also was a bit odd, especially in SK's current situation. I would have thought that just from the laning phase on, they would have the advantage, but they didn't. So TPA is they might be better in the second round, let's say, but it's so strange. When I wrote the Clo 5 preview for the TPA, I was pretty sure, yeah, they can take second. TSM, fine. They can win against TSM. They can maybe win against Royal Club, but now I'm not sure. Just really odd. The other teams are, I think TSM and Royal Club. Royal Club is definitely the best team. TSM is around TPA, and it depends how the early game goes. But I'm just not sold on TPA. Just keep on disappointing.
Well, there's a follow-up question from chat, and this is from Frostgurren. She asked, and I'm going to ask you because, again, you are the strongest GPL person here, and obviously the other panels can chime in afterward. Why was TPA so much stronger against Starhorn compared to the Western teams? And do you think that this speaks to the overall play style of the teams, or is that or do you chalk that up to first game jitters?
Maybe the first game jitters as well, but I'm definitely more convinced by the idea of TPA having a solid plan for the early game, and then that's the only plan they have. They have the early game. They know how to rotate. They know how to play well in lanes, and Wins know how to gank lanes efficiently, not just running around the map like other, well, like Nas. Yeah, like Nas do. But Wins is really efficient with his ganks, and he stole incredible amount of blues as well. So they have the early game pretty much like a solid plan, but from there on, it can't happen. And Starhorn, they needed Uzi to get a bit farmed, a bit more. They needed like 3-4 items on Uzi Eye, or Uzi, or whatever it's going to be next week, or when it's on VOD. And Insect was also a bit lackluster in the beginning of the game. I'm not sure if it's the style. I think TPA had a solid plan. They had a better plan than Starhorn Royal Club for the first 15 minutes, and they just didn't do anything after. That's all it is. Royal Club didn't prepare well for TPA maybe.
Okay. Well, Steven, as a far more neutral observer, what did you think? What was your takeaway? Why was TPA ever able to push Starhorn harder than anybody by far, and then just get completely blasted later on? Like, what did you see?
From what I saw, I don't know. I think they came in with a pretty good plan. They did. They executed pretty well. They got a pretty good early game lead, and then I think they were just lost in the middle of the game. They didn't know what to do. They were indecisive, and then they just kept letting Starhorn get all these free inches back into the game. So I think it's possibly just jitters, because it wasn't as though they were throwing the game through mechanics or anything. They were just letting Starhorn get back in the game. Like, I don't know what else to say about how Starhorn won, though. They just let them win.
I hear what you're saying. Dave, do you think it was playstyle, or do you just kind of chalk this up to they had a great plan when they had it scripted to X minute, and then once the scripting went off, they just kind of fell apart?
Actually, I think it shows the... to be honest, what I think really is that, because from the little GPL that I did watch, I understand that TPA was like head and shoulders above the other teams, right? They were easy. They pretty much dominate and just end the game. So what happened in this game was they got the 6 outer turrets, right? And then they didn't know what to do, because Starhorn wasn't just feeding them kills for no reason. Like, so basically at that situation you have 2 options. You either have to manipulate the minions, so then that way you can get a 5v4 siege on one of the inhibitor towers and whittle it down that way, or you need to play the vision game and bait Baron, bait Dragon, get a pick, and then push a tower, get an inhib, and then use the minions to help you, right? Especially when you have an early game comp versus a late game comp, which is exactly what that happened. TPA did not know how to do that. They did not make a single pick in the jungle that they could translate into a tower or an inhibitor, which is what they needed to do, and they never used the minions on the map to force a 5v4 at a tower and have somebody else defend a massive wave on the far inhibitor tower, which is your other option in that situation. And they didn't do either of those things. So for me, it was chalked up to they're a very strong team that has not had enough experience in close games where they have to close them out. And I think it showed in that game. They didn't know how to close the game.
I think that's fair. We did get another question, and it's actually an addendum to Frost's. It's from Efraz. Kamal, I'm going to give this to you too, because we are kind of just going on a round robin. Do you think, what play styles do you think each region is particularly weak against, if they have any at all? Just pick a region and try and break it down for us, and we'll end up breaking down the Power 5, if you will, before the end of this.
Yeah, starting from the weakest region, that will be... the GPL, anything that goes for the protected AD carry or the high scaling comps, you're gonna win. You just have to have some wave clear to hold up to minute 40 or around, and you're gonna win. The games between TPA and any other team, especially HQ, tend to be incredibly long. Like a 50-minute game with 4 frags, for example. That's just, I don't know how people can watch it. So, yeah, anything that scales well, go for the late game and play safe the early game, because the GPL teams tend to have some nice either pocket picks or nice strategies just to get the early edge, just the smallest of edges. So if you avoid that, you're fine against any GPL team. Then, EU, I don't think there is a particular style you can do against the entire region, because in Europe we have the hyper-aggressive teams, we have the hyper-strategic teams, if that's even a term, like SK.
I wouldn't give it to you in Scrabble, let me put it to you that way. But I understand what you're saying.
So I don't think there's one style. Against those 3 European teams, against Alliance, you could probably go for the either zone, or you have to shut down as much as you can, obviously, Froggen, and hope for a big team fight which will go around Froggen. If you catch either him or... Yeah, if you catch Froggen, you probably win the fight, because it's just like TSM. They need an initiation, and those 2 mid laners provide that. So that would be both Alliance and TSM.
Well, I think if I can distill your comment down, and obviously Steven or Dave, if you have something to add to this, if you think I'm wrong, feel free to jump into it. When I read this question, my first thought is, I don't think regions have a specific playstyle. Yes, there are hallmarks, but I think you need to go by individual teams. And I'll use China as an example, and Kelsey and Frost will blow up my Skype shortly. When I look at Starhorn Royal Club, I feel like their style, it isn't unique to China, but they're the sledgehammer of the region. They're going to get out their sledgehammer and they're going to swing it at you. If they hit you with their sledgehammer, they're probably going to kill you because it's a freaking sledgehammer. But if you can dodge the sledgehammer, you can beat them. But you look at EDG's a lot like Samsung Blue. They're going to use a scalpel, and they're going to cut you to pieces with team fighting and objective control. Now, do they still wield a sledgehammer at times if they need to? Absolutely, but I feel like they go far more for a scalpel. Now, Steven, do you see what I'm saying? Do you have any disagreement, or do you have anything to add to that point?
No, I agree with you. It makes sense. I mean, specifically when it comes to defining a playstyle per region, it's hard, especially in Season 4 when most regions are trying to copy the Koreans. Not China,
Sure.
China, but the other, like NAEU, yeah, they definitely are. Like rotations, like playing proper game plans. It really comes down to maybe champion pools of specific teams, like maybe unique picks. Other than that, yeah, I pretty much agree with you on that.
I think when it comes to NA, actually, with the 3 teams in this tournament, I think NA is the easiest it sucks to say this, but I think NA is actually the easiest region to plan to destroy as an entire region. Because if you look at the 3 NA teams, you have Bjergsen, Hai, and, oh god.
Zhao.
There you go. Thank you. All 3 are very big, all three teams are very mid lane centric, right? Like LMQ, very dependent on Zhao. Hai is completely the shot caller for Cloud9. We've seen how that team performs if he's on tilt. And Bjergsen is apparently the shot caller for TSM. And if we're honest, he's by far the best player on that team. He really does carry them a lot of games. So, to me, NA is the one region where I would agree with you in almost every other region, Tom. But in NA, I think that if you set up your junglers to camp mid and really make the mid laners of NA have a hard time, you're going to beat all the NA teams. And I think that that's actually kind of like an interesting regional matchup between NA and at least the 2 Chinese teams we've been watching so far, because I can't lie, I like EDG and I like Starhorn, but Clear Love and Insec have not exactly been impressing me. Clear Love's Jarvan, the first game, got completely out-jungled by Dandy. Completely out-jungled. He was just running around the map like a
it's Dandy.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, come on, man.
Fair enough. But then in today's game, I thought his first 3 Rengar ults were, until his team got far enough ahead that all he had to do was jump on people, his Rengar ults were completely useless. Like, he got caught out by a ward. One of them, the first time he got killed. He got killed top lane, right? So, I mean, it's like, I don't know. That's a very weird regional matchup for me, because I feel like China should be able to steamroll NA, but I think the key to steamrolling NA is having your jungler in mid just take out the NA mid laner. And although China's come out on top so far, I don't know if that will continue.
Well, basically for the West, you pretty much aim to get the initiator or the shot caller. It's pretty much it. For the Koreans or for the Chinese teams, I don't think that's necessarily the case. But yeah, for the Western teams, definitely. You go for the initiator, whichever that will be, probably the mid laner, but, you know, some teams prefer to have like a hard carry top lane or, well, the tanky initiation from top lane. So you go for this. Just if you shut down the initiations, the Western teams just go back and just hang around and hope for the best, and their best is not coming in most cases.
Okay, we were talking about just what we generally saw, but I actually have a question to all 3 of you about SK. Okay. Obviously, SK has been, let's just call a spade, the focal point of some major drama this week. And with their sub, the team, after being completely throttled yesterday, showed some signs of life. Well, now Svenskeren will be back, and does this team just go 0-6, or are they going to be that team that goes 2-4, 1-5, and breaks this group in half? What's your opinion on that, Dave?
I have to give props to SK for even putting up fights in some of these games, because the difference between Svenskeren and Gilius playstyle-wise, you're going from a super aggressive jungler to a much more passive jungler, right? So even if Gilius was a top level, highest level in the game type jungler, that's a huge adjustment for a team to make, from somebody who goes around putting massive pressure on the map to somebody who's more scaling to the later game, which is what Gilius tends to do well. So I think that SK will be much more in their comfort zone with Svenskeren, because they haven't had enough time to practice with Gilius, and I mean, let's face it, they've been playing quite well all season, and they looked really strong versus Alliance. So it kind of saddens me that we didn't get to see the full group. I don't think they're going to go 0-6. I think they will win a game or two. Off who, I don't know. I don't think they're going to go 3-3. I would love that to happen. That would be amazing, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Just destroy the group in 2 days. That would be
just
That'd be
make
a story.
make it interesting again, you know? But I mean, what can I say? Svenskaren's an idiot. I mean, you go to Worlds and then you make a racist name on your... how stupid. Like, why? Just why?
I would kill for a press conference that someone wouldn't let him off the hook about that. But
Me too.
I'm not going to get that. But Steven, what do you think? Is SK sunk? Are they 0-6? Is it a 3-3? Where do you think they'll be with Svenskeren, given what you've seen?
From what I've seen, I'm gonna take a guess and say 1-5 or 0-0. I'm sorry, 0-6. The reasons I thought that, okay. Yes, Gilius didn't play maybe the best, but I believe Jez has even said somewhere that they didn't give him any direction in the games because they're used to Svenskeren just going mid, right? They're just used to Svenskeren making these calls, but then Gilius doesn't really play with the two. He doesn't know how they work, so they should have given him more direction maybe. But even then, they weren't. Gilius wasn't the problem in these games. Jez missed a bunch of skill shots. On that RA game, he missed charms on a stationary Syndra. Candy Panda and Rated got wrecked most in their games. Candy played pretty horribly these 3 games, all 3 games I think.
Their pick ban phase was terrible too.
Yeah, their pick ban phase was terrible. They gave Starhorn Royal Club all the best champions. The problem's not Svenskeren. Even if they get him back, unless they make some kind of radical change in there, and then they fix their drafting phase, Candy Panda plays even anywhere remotely close to decent. They're not gonna win like these games. They're not gonna get a groups. Not unless they fix all these other problems. That has nothing to do with Svenskeren.
Yeah, well, they don't have their coach either, right? That's another...
Yeah, they don't have their coach either, but still.
Yeah, I definitely think that, while I don't... The whole thing with Svenskeren was a bit of a shame, definitely for the fans, because they couldn't watch the full SK from the beginning. But I think the more impactful was the lack of incarnation, the coach, or supposed coach, however you call it, on Worlds, because they were horrible in the bans and picks, and you can't say that if you lose in ban, if you pick something not optimal, then you're gonna lose the game straight away. That's just not fair. But they could have done it better, and they need someone to just tell them exactly strategically how to play those games. And if they don't have this person, I don't think they can win any game, even with Sven. I'm pretty sure that's maybe one game. I don't think even one game is possible at this point. Maybe against TPA
Low chance
they
for
flop again.
Low chance for 1-5.
They'll beat TPA just to upset you and cheese.
Well, just another part to this conversation. If you remember, after All Stars, the clarion call throughout the West was build infrastructure, get coaches, get analysts, get everything. Basically, build a team around the team. Well, my question now to you, Dave, is given this incident, and I feel like it's pretty much universally known that this was a mistake that Sven made. Riot certainly thought so. Is the next call to continue to build the team around the team to integrate more life coaches, more people? I hate the term mentor, but it's also very applicable here. Is the next phase of building the team around the team to try and figure out some kind of mentoring life coach to try and kind of nip these sort of issues in the bud? What do you think about that, Dave?
Well, I know you guys know, but not all of our viewers might know that I did an interview with the sports psychologist Robert Yip, who works with Team Liquid and TLO in StarCraft. And one of the things, there's a few things on this issue. One, we're taking kids who are for the most part 16 to 21 years old and just saying, hey, look, you went from some kid who was playing video games in your room, you're now famous. Enjoy. Like, this is what's happening. And then, of course, these people they make fools of themselves. I mean, Svenskeren is not the first one to do this. We've seen, Soaz tweet some incredulous things. We've had the Loco drama. Like, this is not new to esports. And I think it's really, really, really important that we get some older. This is one of the advantages Korea has. They have old, retired Brood War players who are there and making sure, hey, listen, don't let this get to your head. Hey, listen, ignore this. Hey, like they have some guidance. And when you're dealing with people who, let's be honest, they're still children. I mean, I feel like I'm a child, and I'm older than most people in the LCS, and I'm still a kid. You know, so it's like it's weird. I can't imagine how these players, especially that when you put in situations like Nien and getting thousands and thousands of comments of hatred, or Glebe, you know, not being able to sleep at all this stress. I think there's a really, really important need for somebody on each team that's neutral, not really, you know, he can be friendly with the players, but it's definitely not super associated with them, where these players can go, they can ask for guidance, and then, yeah, I mean, the free reign over their Twitters is clearly not working for them. There's numerous players that do really dumb things with social media. So yeah, the short answer to that question is yes. They definitely need to start implementing life coaches and just more structure in general. And I think that will come with time. As these organizations get bigger and bigger and we have more money, we can actually do it. Until then, it's pretty hard to bankroll that type of expense.
Steven, a question for you, kind of not an addendum to an addendum, but do you see that as kind of the next step in esports? In I guess let's just go League of Legends for. I don't want to talk about general esports. In League of Legends team growth, kind of the mentoring life coach thing becoming a major push, I could say.
I would agree with that. I mean, if you look at the Korean teams, they have those coaches. They have, like Dave said, they have these former coaches. I remember, I think it was one of Loco's first vlogs after Quantic lost in the qualifiers for the spring split of LCS this year. He said he talked to one of the Brood War coaches a while back, and he asked him, when do I stop trying to go pro? Like, when do I stop being a pro? And he gave the pro gave some really good advice. I believe, if for those of you who are curious, the answer was you stop trying when you stop getting mad over a loss. But aside the point, they have this infrastructure, they have this support from the players, people who know what it's like to be a pro in Korea, and what it's like after a pro. You have Reach as a coach in Najin, Home, is it Home or Home? I forgot. Home, okay.
I thought it was Home.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, you know
he acts like a mentor to the Samsung teams, doesn't he?
He straight up walked on stage and like smacked Imp in the back of the head for his shenanigans versus EDG.
Exactly. You have these people who are to support them, but like, yeah, okay, yes, we need this. I think we would benefit from this kind of life coach support in the Western teams. But the other problem is, who are we going to get for that? Who are the players actually going to listen to? We know that a lot of Western players right now, or not all of them, because a lot of them are retired, and the ones I'm talking about specifically, the ones who have egos, the ones who are less likely to listen to coaches, analysts, whatever. Who are they going to listen to? They need, like, maybe idols or former pros. But who do we have right now in the West? We have retired LCS pros who are going back to school, who are just streaming, they're kind of not doing anything. Maybe we can get them, but I don't know if they'll be able to like, command a certain level of respect that the Brood War players do in Korea.
Well, there's a lot of old Halo coaches, but none of them, like, I know a bunch of old Halo coaches, none of them ever got asked to do anything. And there was more infrastructure, like gaming houses were in existence in North America. This is not new. Before League of Legends, when they were like, oh, gaming house is so new. It's like, no. All you had to do was go to 2008, look at any Halo team that was any good, and they had a gaming house. It was already the case.
We can look there. We have some places to look.
We should be. There's retired coaches, retired players. Yeah, it is, definitely. I see what you're saying, though. It's definitely harder, for sure. But we don't need to look inside the game. We can look to other games for coaches, right?
Yeah, maybe for the games. I don't think in this particular situation it was rather a mistake of a management or any caretaker, if you will, of Sven's. I think I would like Riot, when they already decided that those big events are for the fans especially, that they would just take a closer look at the players and just keep an eye on everything. And even if something happens, just do the quick damage control and not cover up everything, because, you know, that's different. But just do the damage control and prevent those incidents from escalating, if you will. So I think in this case that was definitely could have been handled better. I don't think necessarily you need a specific. I don't know why I call them caretakers, but it seems like it would be caretakers, like they're just babies at this point.
But honestly, in a lot of ways, they are, which sounds terrible. And if you talk to me, I'm one of the biggest guys saying you're 18 or you are 17. Sorry, you are probably an adult in the eyes of the state of California. You're an adult in my eyes, but at some point you also have to realize you got to have someone to teach them. But I see what you're saying, Camille.
Yeah, I definitely think that not necessarily a manager should solve. I think if you hire a sports psychologist, that would be one of his tasks to not even control it, just to prevent it. That would be the way I would go about it. But yeah, someone to help, because players on their own are.
Well, especially in the West,
the most responsible group.
Especially in the West, we have too many with the Bieber syndrome, right? Like they just got blown up, and now they're a kid. Yeah, I went there. They're a kid. They're basically kids that got handed the keys to a Corvette and said, "Here you go." Like, and then we expect them to not street race. Like, are you kidding me? They're 17. Of course they're gonna do dumb stuff.
Well, guys, I completely agree. I think we've kind of come to a consensus on this topic. We have been going for about 50 minutes, and I do want to say we do have more questions. But again, fans, if you're listening and you have other questions than what you've submitted, pass them on. We'll get to them. I've got the two that I've got and queued up how I want to structure the conversation. But before we do that, there's really one more big elephant in the room. And that big elephant in the room is named Team Solo Mid in Group B. Steven, I'm going to pass this one to you.
Okay.
Do you... what have you seen from TSM? Are they now the favorite after beating TPA to get out of the group behind Starhorn? Or, what's your stance on TSM after the first 2 days' worth of action?
Let's see. Well, on the last show, I said I picked TSM as my second to get out of the groups after Starhorn. I still think they'll get second after Starhorn. My impressions of the games was their loss to Starhorn was a completely necessary kick in the nads reality check for the upper management and the players. Completely necessary, and I wish they got hit even harder, to be honest. But I think they will not make that mistake again. I still think they'll get out second. I think they played pretty solid against SK, and I think they will continue to play solid against SK, because like I said, I don't think getting Sven back will solve that many problems that SK will have. TPA, maybe they'll beat them the second time around. I don't know how well TPA adapts to playing the same, similar teams again. And then, who's the fourth again?
Starhorn.
Yeah, sorry, they'll lose to them. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I think that's fair, but Dave, I know pre-show you had one specific, directly flaming question to TSM, so I'm just going to pass the floor to you. And if you want to go there, you can go there. But let's try and
I'll go there.
Let's not napalm the show right this second. But go ahead, otherwise.
I'll keep the napalm on the back burner for now. But this really bugs me. I mean, you're the coach of a team. Loco, this is aimed right at you. I know you watch this stuff. I know you listen to everything because you and Reggie can't not listen to anything the TSM is brought up in. So here's my question: how can you possibly make a vlog to release to the general community where you don't even know the names of the people you're playing? How? And then I'm so glad. I mean, I'm a TSM fan. I'm going to say this right now. Dyrus is one of the first people I watched stream. He's still to this day one of my favorite players. Just I like the guy. I have a lot of respect for him. And it really makes me angry that I have a hard time cheering for him because you disrespect your opponents in a way that's completely unacceptable in any professional thing. Trash talk is one thing. Richard Lewis made a great point today in his article. Trash talk should augment competition. When you do it to build up the hype, it's great. When you do it to overshadow everything, it's terrible. And this blew up in your face, and I'm glad it did. I'm really, really glad it did, because there's no room for that. And then, here's the other thing. I'm sorry, but Summoning Insight is not attacking you. Grow up. That's just. I'm not going to go expand much further. But if you
this is not napalming, because this sounds pretty napalm.
turn on ESPN, and no. The napalm is in my back burner. But I mean, I'm sure Tom can tell you the same thing. You turn on a college football or anything, and players have to get evaluated against each other. Does Thorin take it too far sometimes? Sure, but come on, you're going to get critiqued. It has to happen. I'm sorry.
Well,
that's all I'm going to say.
I think that's fair. So, Camille, I haven't given you a shot to talk about TSM very much. What have you seen from their first 3 games? And I'm gonna let the napalm burn out on that side of the program.
Damn, I had something.
But what have you seen from TSM's first 3 games? Do you think they're now the solid number 2?
They might as well be. Yeah, probably. I think they still could win the second game against Royal Club, because Royal Club has some weaker points at certain times, and it is possible to snowball against any team. Well, if you're not a wildcard team, at least. Yeah, it is possible to snowball. I think it's not likely, and I think it's gonna end up with the same. The second round will be the same as the first round, so 2-0 for TSM. Probably. I would love to have a bit more competition between TPA, SK, and TSM at the second round, especially with Sven and TPA hopefully getting back their groove, or whatever you call it. But if it stands where we are right now, TSM is the second, and there's no competition for them for the second spot right now. Oh, and by the way, just to the locker, I'm not gonna go on a napalm strike like Dave, but I'm just surprised. I would never expect a coach for any team to put so much pressure on his players without any reason. Because if you trash talk another team, or if you say, yeah, we won all the scrims, they are worse than us, you are automatically putting pressure on your own players, which kind of doesn't, I don't know, it's counterintuitive to what I expect from a coach, at least. I wouldn't do it, but it's Loco, so it's Lord Loco, by the way. It's not Loco, so they won.
Well, we have been talking about NA, and I'm going to shift gears. This is a question from chat, and I know who this comes from, so I know what answer she wants. But Dave, you're on the back burner because you just napalmed half of North America. I'm going to pass this one to Steven, because this. I think this one is interesting. I think your more historical view of League of Legends will be pertinent here. Do you think that there's a legitimate criticism to be made against the quote-unquote bias of North American/European storytelling, like the narrative, versus their Asian counterparts? Got you on the spot. Yes.
I think he's.
I think you need to unmute your mic. It was Steven, but I think
sorry,
you muted
I muted my mic because I type loud. No. I was just saying that I needed some time to, like, a little bit to think, so I didn't really start my answer. Okay, I do think there is a bias, and the reason that there is a bias is because all the storylines started in NA, or at least the ones that came to light. Almost all of them. Like Epic Gamer way back in the day, CLG, TSM, the rivalry, CLG winning the first WCG. And NA winning the second WCG against Chinese Korean teams, even though they were 7 patches behind, or didn't have their own server, aka Korea. Yeah, there is a bias, and there should be more people who are open to the storylines in Asia, because there are interesting storylines. I mean, even in Road to Worlds, they brought up the sub stories of Chinese players and Taiwanese players, whatever, right? But even then, there are more stories than just that. I mean, I wish we had more light on the Asian countries. I know Kespa just did the stream marathon. I'm sorry, there's a skunk outside my window.
Okay, that's the best segue ever. So,
that might be the best exit from a camera for 2 seconds I've ever seen. I'm sorry, this is skunk. I'm just gonna
run away. But, okay, Steven, I'm going to let you deal with your skunk. I see
fine.
kind of where you were going. Oh, okay, go ahead. Continue, please.
Windows closed, but yeah. There's a bigger bias towards NA than EU, I think. And
Yeah.
they get shot. There's only Yellow Stars featured in Road to the World, and even before then, there aren't too many features I remember that were made as well as the NA ones from Europe, LCS. I do think that's definitely a problem, because if we're going to introduce wildcard teams as a way to embrace culture of esports around the world, then it's a crime to only focus on NA in terms of the backstory and how rich the stories are.
I think it just mostly stems from the fact that Riot's based in North America, right? Like, the head offices of Riot, so all the main content people are North American, and you can't really blame them for being NA fans. I mean, those are the people that they get to see every day. So, but on the other hand, I completely agree with you, because there's more people playing the game, from what I understand, in China than there is in the rest of the world combined. So to kind of ignore that audience is a little bit strange. I would also like, I don't understand any Asian language at all, but I don't mind watching things with subtitles if it's an interesting story, and I like to see the storyline and the drama get created. It doesn't make sense that there's not drama over there.
There's drama. It's just shady drama.
That's
I hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying.
not drama brought to light for us to enjoy. There's no storyline drama, or less of it.
Okay, well, Camille, do you think this is a legitimate criticism, or is this overblown? Of the NAEU-centric storytelling?
I don't think it's overblown. It's just that Riot heavily aims at the western part of the world when they go for the broadcasting stuff, all the articles and so on. I would love to read more about China, because China is such an undervalued, an undercovered region.
Kelsey tell you to say that?
Yeah, she's already tweeting me that. So. I'm just reading right now. No, but honestly, I would love to see that, but I'm not sure it's bad necessarily. When I heard all those people chant TSM at Taiwan, it was a bit odd. It caught me off guard a bit, because I didn't expect that. But you know, it's cool to see, and I don't think necessarily. Well, I'll put it this way: we don't have the best teams. Let's just have the best stories. Then you know, it should be balanced.
That's an interesting way to phrase it. But we have one final question. This is another. I'm going to pass this one primarily to Steven, because I know he's more the LOL historian. And this comes from Holy Mother of Fanboy in chat. Again, thank you for your question. And
Is that his username, or is that Hugo?
That is what I was given. So
Okay.
I would assume that is his username.
I wasn't sure if that was a cute pet name for Hugo or not.
It might be. No, he's not screaming ridiculousness about LGD gaming, so it's not Hugo. But anyway, the question is, do you guys think that EDG is just like WE in Season 2? Steven, the floor is yours.
Let's see. Are we talking playstyle or history?
That's all I've got. I would take it, just your knee-jerk reaction to that question.
Okay. Just to make sure, because I'm gonna get EDG won the last few all the LPOs, right? Like the last this year.
Spring and summer.
Okay. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't watched enough LPL to make this statement, but if anything, if they're like WE, I can't compare playstyles because I'm not an expert in Chinese League, but I can say that World Elite started Season 3 off with a bang. They went undefeated for about 5 months before they crashed, but let's see, Season 2. They definitely had a lot of star players. They had Messiah, Wei Zhao. They came knocking on CLGEU's doors, and I honestly think that had there been no connection issues, stressing out the players and exhausting the players, I think World Elite could have possibly made it to the finals. I think they could have beaten CLGEU, and then put up a really good fight against, I think it was Azubu Frosty that was the next opponent, had they beaten CLGEU, because I was there during the CLGEU and World Elite games, and all those restarts, because I was sitting in the second row, I could see the stress on all of the players for World Elite, and they were so upset. They were I mean, they were going on their 5th game, and COGEU, the team was cheering themselves on with songs, whatever. Had that been a straight series with no problems, I think World Elite could have taken that. I think they could have possibly made it to the finals. So maybe, I guess I could compare them to EDG right now. But that's the best answer I can give you. I'm sorry, I don't have more information to work on.
I think that's fine. Dave, Camille, do you have anything to add to that?
My obvious comparison would be the AD carry similarity.
Okay.
In Season 2, Wei Zhao was considered
The best.
like CD, right? He was like universally, like even Double Lift has said that guy was a god, like, and Double Lift is known to not say anybody's a god but himself. So when he's praising somebody, I'll take his word that that guy was really good. I didn't watch too much in Season 2. I got into League right before Season 2 World Championships, so I'd be lying if I said I knew an awful amount about World Elite, other than what I saw at that World Championships, really. And obviously, Namei is considered one of the best ADs now. But I think their playstyles, like, from what I remember about Wei Zhao, he was more flashy. Like, Namei's a very safe, like, as we've already gone over. So, not really. I wouldn't say that they're very similar. I'd say that the big similarity, at least to me, that stands out in my mind, is that strength in the bot lane. And I think that is one of the strong points of the Chinese region, is the incredible mechanical skill of some of the AD carries in that region.
Well, I definitely think the similarity is that they are a bit ahead when it comes to both strategy and maybe even players. Although some of the players from EDG annoy me a bit, but most are fine and they're pretty good actually. But the thing is, the timing of those teams is too different. In Season 2, China actually had a legitimate shot at winning Worlds, and World Elite won the IPL 5, right? They won against Fnatic, right, against Fnatic in the final. So, and it was right after the Worlds. So, they were the top contender. And right now, the Korean teams are still ahead. I can't see EDG being in the same situation as World Elite. Even if they might be even similar teams, the situation is different. So the comparison, even if it's true, it doesn't really bring anything to the table, because the situation is too different. They would need to be way better than World Elite to be as good on the global scale as good on the global scale as World Elite back then. That's my point.
I think that's fair. Holy Mother of Fanboy, I hope that did adequately answer your question. I have one more question, but before I ask it, I do want to say, with only one more question, we're running out of topics, so if you have something that's burned in the back of your mind and you're watching, feel free to drop us a line in the chat and we'll pass it on. Okay, guys, time to put on your analyst hats. This one comes from Froskuren, and I've technically already answered this on China Talk, so I can't really get into it, or I could, but it would just be repeating myself. Froskuren wants to know, or wants you, I guess I'll give this one to Dave, because he's looking analytical, and I'm getting him back for napalming my show. Dave, break down the SK versus Starhorn Royal Club matchup for me. Give me the win conditions, her favorite buzzword. Give her the win conditions associated with this matchup.
Are we talking about the one that's going to be coming up?
Yes.
Okay. Well, for starters, I think that Sven is really going to have to out-jungle Clear Love, which should be possible from what I've seen. Hasn't been playing... Oh, wait. She said Starhorn.
Yes, Starhorn. It was
Sorry,
Insect.
Insect. Yes, not...
Yes.
Sorry about that. Anyway, Insect also hasn't been playing that great. He's kind of washed up, in my opinion. Anyway, I think that that's a real possibility. So my first win condition would be making sure that you get an aggressive champion, a good champion for Svenskeren, where he can control the early pace of the game like he likes to. Because what people don't realize is how much that frees up the SK lanes to play a little bit safer, or allows them to get farm a little bit easier. Which is arguably their weakest point is laning phase, so having that strong jungler there is really imperative. So my number one condition would be getting a really strong jungler, making sure you win the jungle matchup. I'd also really like to see a Zillion pick. Again, for the same reason, because if you can get the jungle ahead with a Zillion and that stupid passive he's still got, you can really snowball that jungle advantage and really take over the game. So I think that that would be my main area, because your bot lane is probably going to get dump trucked. Uzi is very, very, very good, and Candy Panda, I like him. I think he's been playing well all season, but as Steven pointed out, he has not been playing so great this World Championships. Now, is that because of what Svenskeren does for the team? Maybe. Is it because he was on tilt mentally because they didn't have their full roster? Also a possibility. But that would be my biggest thing. Focus top lane. Freddy's been playing out of his mind this tournament. He played really, really well some of these games. So I would get Svenskeren ahead, pick a Zillion in the mid lane, because we all know Jesus with skill shots isn't that great, so hopefully he can click the chrono shift on the right person. Get a strong bot lane so that they can survive, and just make sure Svenskeren can control, snowball Freddy, and use the Zillion to really snowball the jungle advantage, and then do what SK does best. They know how to play the objective game. So that would be my win conditions for SK. Starhorn Royal Club, you already saw their win conditions. Just straight up
beat the snot out of everybody.
Just straight up dump them. So, I mean, that's self-explanatory, I think. That would be my answer to it. But I'm also not a paid analyst for any team, so I could be completely wrong.
No, I think you're close. Camille, do you disagree with that? Would you go some other way?
I agree to an extent. I think Freddy has been amazing, and I think he can handle Cola. But I also think they won't let Freddy do anything, because in all 3 games, I'm not sure if it was 9. Well, it depends if Kaylee you consider a top ban, because Unrated also played it. So but let's say if Kaylee is a bot lane ban, 8 out of 9 bans were targeted at Freddy in 3 games. So they know they have to shut him down, and I don't think he can carry from a Mundo. He has to carry from something. I would love him to play something, maybe Shyvana or some. It's not really in the meta, although it has been played in China, for example.
Save and go going. We'll play that champion in this tournament. Yeah. I would bet tons of money. That's the
next weekend.
But anyway, continue with your point.
I think they won't let Freddy win it alone. That's the scary thing about it. I also think that Candy Panda has to grow some balls, because especially against TPA, he did... Okay, they had Syndra, but when Syndra bursts you to half HP, or you have like 60% of HP, and you flash out from the team fight, when they don't have any burst anymore, that's just really dodgy play. You should just stay. You can take it on your bad chest or whatever. Just tank it out and kill everyone. No one else was hitting him. Just this Syndra's ulti, and he flashed out and lost the team fight. So I don't know. He has to grow some balls. He can't play Twitch, because Twitch is not gonna carry. When they played Royal Club, I was thinking that okay, they have Twitch. The only way to make it efficient or even possible to win, he has to suicide. He has to go invisible to the back lane and blow up Uzi and just die 1-for-1. That's the only way to be useful for his team, and he can't do it. So not Twitch, some hyper carry, and just play a bit more aggressive, and that's maybe they will win. And they have to just... I would even ignore Freddy. Freddy will do his thing. He's gonna be fine alone. He doesn't need help. He's a man. He doesn't need help. So yeah.
Well, Steven, let's shift gears a little, because she did want another breakdown, and I'm going to pass this one to you.
Sure.
She's interested in the win conditions for TPA versus TSM in their second game, which is actually tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's one of the first 3 games. I don't really know. I'm going to be traveling to Tuscaloosa, so I have to watch these on VOD. Lucky.
Okay. Okay, let's see. TSM's win conditions you pretty much saw today. They dismantled TPA in the early game, and they just got Bjergsen going, they got everyone going, and then they just took the objectives one by one. It was kind of a simple win. They just pushed to win, kind of pushed them to dirt, dragged them down a bit. For TPA, they need to stop Bjergsen from getting big, because when you look at like TSM's win the last few, like this now in regionals, right? Bjergsen kind of hard carried, and that's what he does. He's a really good mid laner, and they should play the vision game and wipe out the vision and around mid lane, make Bjergsen a little uncomfortable to make plays because he doesn't have vision, and then maybe bait him in, get him shut down. Bot lane, let's see. I think if they can just hold out and maybe try to pick Turtle out a few times, because Turtle is the weak point in TFSon's bot lane. He's gonna get picked out, and I don't know how well Lustboy will be able to carry him through laning phase through every single game. So TPA just needs to do the same thing to TSM that TSM did to them, which is dismantle them early. But at the same time, TPA is able to make good calls throughout the game. Like, we kind of saw that in the TPA versus SK. They mind gamed them out of a Baron, just took the free Baron for themselves. And then, I don't know, TPA just needs to keep a level head but not get, like, crapped on in the early game. The way they did this time.
Sorry, my Skype blew up shortly. I think that's fair. Now, Frost, I think we're getting one more question from her, and then we have a couple more, then we'll be closing. And this one we get to have a little fun with. She wants to know our predictions, who's going to win Worlds, obviously given 2 days of games. So, Camille, who you got winning Worlds right now?
White. I think they will win against Blue, finally. They have to at some point. So, yeah, I think White may win. If it doesn't do something really incredibly reckless, then, yeah, they might.
Dave, who you got?
Blue.
You even have score.
I even have a blue notebook. That's exact. I have it just for that. No, here's the thing. Blue is White's kryptonite, in my opinion, and those two teams are really, at least to me, they have to mess up. It's their tournament to lose. The Samsung organization can win this tournament. It just depends on who wants it, in my opinion. If they don't come out to play, which we've seen with White last year, they can not show up. It is a possibility with that team. Imp can just not be there. You can just go to him, and so I take Blue. That's my pick.
Steven, who you got?
Let's see. If Blue doesn't meet White in... Okay, if Blue meets White, Blue's gonna win. If they don't, then I think White's gonna win. If Blue gets knocked out before they can even fight White somehow, then I think White will win if Blue gets knocked out before they fight them. If not, Blue will knock White out.
Okay, well,
So who would you have win against Blue then? White Shield or Alliance or Cloud9? In that scenario, that they don't meet.
That's a good question.
That's you know, or Kaboom. You never know, but
yeah. Kaboom is going to knock Blue out of the tournament, so White can win.
So basically, I'm going Blue here. I'd also like to point out that everyone in the show is wearing blue except for me.
Well, blue brings out the color of my eyes. Thank
gray.
you, sir.
It's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy.
Yeah, I just think that when they played, both teams played heavy, tanky tops, then Blue had the edge because they played better in the mid to late game. They had a better suited AD carry for this type of skirmishes or team fights. But right now, when I see the Rumble, and if I see maybe Nidalee or something, I think White can take it. I just think that the meta slightly shifted, and I think Blue might not be the best anymore. Or, you know.
That's fair.
That's why they play the games. Well, we did get another question, and this is actually a really good question. I'm going to pass it to Dave. This one's going to you. So this is from Caleb0331, and he says, we've seen a lot of Rengar and Yasuo plays from both China and Korea so far, but not so much from North America and Europe. Also, I believe that North America and Europe cannot deal with those two champions. Will Rengar and Yasuo be a permaban against Asian teams going forward? What do you think?
The Rengar, no. The Yasuo, yes. And I'm going to explain why in a second. Other than Bjergsen, I really don't know what Western mid laner can play Yasuo. And even Bjergsen, I guess Yaowei Zhao kind of, but not at the same level. I mean, when you watch Dade play Yasuo,
Or Pawn.
they just win the game. Like, they can't have that champion, you lose. It's over. There's no one in the West that's that scary on Yasuo. And to me, it's because even though he's not a skill shot champion, the level of cognitive ability you have to play that champion properly and to predict everything and to really play him is incredibly difficult. So yes, I think Yasuo will be a permaban, and I don't think any Western team can really play him. I mean, aside from maybe TSM. TSM might be able to get away with it in some of the more important games. Obviously, any Western team could play him against Kaboom or something. It's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about in a game like any of the Western teams versus China or Korea. I don't think you'll be seeing a Yasuo coming from NA or Europe unless it's on Bjergsen. The Rengar pick, I don't see a reason to ban it unless you're playing Dandy. Dandy is a disgustingly good Rengar. Everyone else, I have not been impressed. Like I said, Clearlove put no pressure on the map until his team was already stomping, and then okay, you can just jump on people with Rengar. Congratulations! Like I don't see that as being necessary, but I also don't see that being picked up by any NA teams again because of how complex it is to play that champion correctly.
Yeah,
Camille, jump in. I'm sorry.
I think that against Dandy you kind of have to ban it. You can't. But against Dandy, you might as well just go, let's ban someone else and just leave Dandy do his thing, because Dandy can do maybe not the same, but just almost as much on other champions, Lee Sin, Kha'Zix, whatever. So I'm not necessarily sure if that's the only way to play against White. I think it's gonna be banned against Insect in Group B because people hype up Insect a lot, and I think they're gonna keep on banning Rengar, even though he wasn't that awesome on him. But you never know. It's a good champion, so he might have a weak game, but if he comes up with a good game, you can lose because you didn't ban it. So it's a risk that not many teams will take, especially at the stage where every game is really crucial. So I think it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be banned. And to Yasuo, I'm not sure. TSM. That's a fair point that TSM can play it. I think Progan can play anything, so yeah, Alliance can play it as well. But I don't think in both cases they should play it, because
yeah, exactly.
They should be playing something with a big potential, with a long range CC, possibly, if possible. So Western teams will probably ban Rengar and Yasuo both against Asian teams. Or they'll probably ban both, and they're not going to play either.
That puts TSM in a rough spot, too, because they have to ban Italy every game because Dyrus can't play it, unfortunately. That's like another interesting, that really, really hurts TSM, because then you have the Alistair ban that's kind of necessary, the Maokai ban that we really shouldn't be giving up. And then what do you do when you play a team like Samsung White? And you give Dandy Lee Sin.
Yeah.
Now what?
Planning TSM's bans, I do not envy that analyst team. It
No.
is
I feel bad for him.
it is not a fun spot to be in.
Not at all.
But before
It's pretty fun to see TSM bans, because they banned nearly LB 16 times out of 17 games. So the whole playoffs, 14 out of 14, that was a first ban. And they banned it 2 times, and the third time against Royal Club, they didn't ban him because Royal Club banned it. So I don't know. TSM is not gonna play Nidalee or play against Nidalee till the end of the tournament. So that's pretty much the end of conversation about it.
Well, that's fair, but we didn't give Steven a chance to answer Caleb's question. Steven, what do you think about Yasuo and Rengar? And actually, I want to shout out Caleb, because I got the chat that said he's really happy about your question. We are proud to answer it. Keep it coming, though we are kind of getting near the end of the show.
That was actually a really good question. That was probably one of the better ones that I've seen in any other episodes, so thank you for that.
My answer is pretty much in line with David. I don't think it's worth banning out Rengar as much unless they're playing Dandy, because their wave manipulation, especially in top lane, will be so spot on that Dandy's just going to get all these free kills on anyone. I don't know. I can't think of any mid laners other than Bjergsen who can play Yasuo really well. I do think Yasuo is pretty decent. High is Yasuo. Well, he can only play assassins really well compared to other champions. So I guess Yasuo is one of his better champions, but when you compare his Yasuo to other Yasuo, it's like, no. My answer is pretty much aligned with David. I don't want to drag the show on too long.
No, that's fine. We do have one more question, and I'm going to cut it off there. And this is kind of a fun question from, let's see, Dying by the Drop. Interesting name there. Rock on, dude. But his question just asks who our favorite champions are. So, I mean, just, again, fun question to end the show. So Camille, I already know yours because you spoiled it, but why don't you tell our viewers?
At Worlds, right?
Yeah, at Worlds. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that favorite. That's
you can't say Poppy. I'll kick you off the call.
yeah.
How did you?
I would really like to see more Zerats. I don't understand why Janna is played so often. Don't get it. Even if it doesn't work in the composition. So yeah, my favorite for the Worlds would be Xerath, because I think that's the only champion that can carry possibly the Western teams forward a bit.
Dave, what you got?
Well, of course, deep inside, I want to say Teemo, because that's all I care about in this game.
I
But-
would slap you through this show, so help me God if you said that.
I feel like I can't say that after my earlier comments. So, I think actually my champion for this tournament is actually Syndra. I think when you look at what a mid laner can do with that champion in terms of not only blowing somebody up, but also with the if you go the Athenes and Deathfire Grasp, you have 30% CDR. You can actually do some pretty good damage in a team fight too for an assassin. Like you can do some pretty good AoE damage with your Qs. And then the ability for that long-range stun to make picks, I think especially for the Western teams, you should be a priority pick for both Bjergsen and Frog. And Bjergsen's an incredible Syndra. I think that really needs to be TSM's priority pick if I was TSM's coach or analyst. I mean, when he's on that champion, he can make so many plays, and she's just really fun to watch too. So pretend that I'm saying Syndra, but secretly Teemo.
Yeah, we're gonna keep that so secret that I'm not even going to acknowledge it. Steven, what about you?
Ordinarily, I'd say J4 because J4 is my most played champion. When I played like over 1,000 years on the but for this tournament specifically at Worlds, Janna is my favorite champion. I think Janna's probably one of my favorite supports. She's I think she's also pretty good right now because there's a lot of engaged champions like J4, but then Janna has a lot of flexibility in how you deal with engaged comps. And even though this wasn't Worlds, Aftermoon Splash Monsoons were so beautiful. I would love to see another one of those in Worlds.
If you hadn't said that, I was actually going to reference it, even if it wasn't at Worlds. Well, guys, we're gonna go. Let's go on and wind down the show. But before we do, I do want to say to our viewers, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. We are trying to make the show better. As seen, this is only the third time we've done it, so give us some feedback. You know, if this crazy guy with the red hair talked too much, hit me up on Twitter and tell me. I would appreciate your feedback. But, you know, we are trying to make this show for the fans, for the viewers. So please let us know what you would like to see. I personally, I'm on Twitter 24/7, and I'll be glad to have a dialogue with you. I feel like the other guys on the panel, or even the guys running the stuff in the chat, would listen as well. We really want your feedback, and we would really appreciate it. But before we close the show, I'm going to let my guys do some shout-outs, or, you know, whoever they want. So, Camille, the floor is yours. You've got 30 seconds of FaceTime.
Shout out to Mike for not firing us yet, for being unprofessional and pretty bad at what we do. So shout out to Mike, definitely. Just keep us around.
Mike's one of the owners of Paravine, for context.
Thank you, Mike.
Anyway, Dave, what you got to close us out?
Well, of course, thanks to everybody watching. We really appreciate it. Thanks to Paravine for putting this together, putting this out. Thanks to you, beautiful folks, for being here. And thanks to all of you who don't destroy me on Twitter for going after Loco.
All three of you. Steven, what you got?
Let's see. Shoutouts to everyone who contributes to Wonderful World discussion during on Twitter, and especially, for example, Kelsey Frost for getting all the hate for China and beasting it, not caring. Yeah, no one else. Just same things to Mike for not burying me.
I will say, Frost's Twitter entertained me throughout the day yesterday.
Oh yeah, it was great.
So
wait!
It was pretty good.
Shout out to Andy. We didn't write our second chapter of the Chinese narrative today.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Andy for moderating. And actually, we should just give a shout out to Frost for making the layout for us, because I don't think we've ever officially thanked her. And she's the person who designed the beautiful black and green screen in which our beautiful faces appear. So thank you for that as well.
Well, guys, I am going to go on and with that, I am going to go on and close the show. I believe our next show will resume our Monday schedule. We'll break down the second half of Groups A and Group B. We'll probably talk a little C and D just because it would be coming up, and we've talked about it, but can't talk about this stuff enough in my mind. So that's what we'll be, that's what we'll be going for. Probably, we'll tweet out the time. I'm not really sure. I actually have class, so our time kind of has to be flexible on Mondays. But anyway, again, thank you to our viewers. Give us your feedback. But until then, we will see you this Monday to break down the second half of Group A and Group B and talk a little Group C and D as well. Thank you and have a great rest of the weekend.
Mwah.